Most gardeners plant the same crops every single year. Tomatoes, peppers, lettuce, beans. Every spring, they start over. New seeds, new transplants, new soil prep, new planting. It's a yearly subscription to gardening, and like any subscription, it costs time and money forever. But there's a different approach, a category of vegetables most people ignore. Perennials, plants you establish once and harvest for decades. No replanting, no annual seed costs, no starting over every spring. Today I'm going to show you 6 perennial vegetables that compound in value every year they're in the ground. This is the same principle we've applied to fertilizer, feed, and food systems. Stop paying repeatedly for the same result. Build once, harvest forever. Let's start with why most gardeners never grow perennials. The problem is immediate gratification. Annual vegetables produce fast. Plant a tomato in May, harvest in July. That's instant feedback. Instant reward. Perennials require patience if you plant them. The first year they establish roots. Maybe you get a small harvest, maybe nothing. The second year, production increases. By the third year, they're producing more than most annuals, and they keep producing, year after year, for 10, 15, 20 years. But most gardeners can't wait. They want tomatoes now, so they never plant perennials, and they never build the compounding food system that perennials create. Here's the shift you need to make. Stop thinking in seasons. Start thinking in decades. A tomato plant gives you 1 summer of production. An asparagus crown gives you 20 years. Which one is the better investment? The math is obvious. But behavior doesn't follow math. It follows emotion. And emotion wants immediate results. That's why this video matters. Because once you understand what perennials actually deliver, the patience becomes easy. If you plant just one of these this year, your future self will thank you every spring for the next 20 years. Here are 6 perennial vegetables worth planting. The first is asparagus. Asparagus is the gateway perennial, and it's widely known. It's expensive at the grocery store. And it produces for 15 to 25 years from a single planting. You plant crowns in early spring. The first year, you don't harvest. You let the plants establish. The second year, you harvest lightly for 2 weeks. By the third year, you're harvesting for 6 to 8 weeks every spring. One mature asparagus bed can produce 10 to 15 pounds of spears per year. At $4 to $6 per pound in stores, that's $60 to $90 of value annually for 20 years from one planting. That's $1,200 to $1,800 of food from a one-time effort. Asparagus likes full sun and well-drained soil. Once established, it requires almost no maintenance. You mulch it. You let it grow tall after harvest to feed the roots. You cut it back in fall. That's it. The second perennial is rhubarb. Rhubarb is even easier than asparagus. It tolerates partial shade. It handles cold climates better than most vegetables, and it produces for 10 to 15 years minimum. You plant crowns or divisions in early spring or fall. The first year you don't harvest. The second year you harvest lightly, and by the third year you're pulling thick stalks for months. Rhubarb is prolific. One plant produces 5 to 10 pounds per year once mature. Most people use rhubarb for pies, jams, and desserts, but it also works in savory dishes and preserves well. Rhubarb requires almost no care. Water during dry spells. Mulch in fall. Divide every 8 to 10 years if it gets crowded. That's the entire maintenance schedule. The third perennial is walking onions, also called Egyptian onions or tree onions. These are the most unusual vegetable on this list. Walking onions grow bulbs at the top of their stalks instead of underground. Those top bulbs get heavy. The stalk bends over. The bulbs touch the ground and root. The plant literally walks across your garden over time. You harvest the top bulbs and use them like shallots. You can also harvest the greens like scallions, and the underground bulbs are edible too. One plant gives you 3 harvests. Walking onions are incredibly low maintenance. They tolerate poor soil. They handle shade. They spread on their own. You plant them once and they multiply forever. Most people have never heard of walking onions, but they're one of the most productive perennials you can grow. The fourth perennial is sorrel. Sorrel is a leafy green with a sharp lemony flavor. It's used in salads, soups, and sauces. In stores, sorrel is expensive and hard to find. In your garden, it's free and effortless. Sorrel grows from seed or divisions. It establishes quickly. By the second year, you're harvesting leaves from early spring through late fall. One plant produces multiple pounds of greens per season. For 10 to 15 years, sorrel tolerates partial shade. It handles cold well. It requires no fertilizer if your soil has organic matter. You harvest outer leaves and let the plant keep growing. It's one of the first greens available in spring and one of the last in fall. The fifth perennial is Jerusalem artichoke, also called sunchoke. Jerusalem artichokes are not from Jerusalem, and they're not artichokes. They're a type of sunflower that produces edible tubers underground. These tubers taste nutty and slightly sweet. You can roast them, mash them, or use them like potatoes. Jerusalem artichokes are absurdly productive. One tuber planted in spring becomes 10 to 20 tubers by fall. You harvest what you need and leave some in the ground. Those leftover tubers regrow next year. The plant spreads aggressively if you let it. Some people call it invasive, but if you want a high-calorie perennial vegetable that requires zero effort, this is it. Plant it once in a contained bed or corner of your property. Harvest tubers every fall for decades. That's the entire system. The sixth perennial is sea kale. Sea kale is less common in North America, but highly productive. It's a European coastal plant that produces tender shoots in early spring. Those shoots are blanched and eaten like asparagus. The leaves are also edible when young. Sea kale tolerates poor soil, salt spray, and cold winters. It's one of the most resilient perennials you can grow. You start sea kale from root cuttings or seed. It takes 2 to 3 years to reach full production. But once mature, it produces for 15 to 20 years. One plant yields several pounds of shoots and greens per year. Sea kale requires minimal care. Mulch it. Water during establishment. Harvest shoots in spring before they toughen. That's it. Now let's talk about the real advantage of perennials. Compounding production. Annual vegetables give you one season of output. Then you start over. Perennials increase output every year as they mature. Year 1, you get little or nothing. Year 2, you get a small harvest. Year 3, production doubles. Year 4, it doubles again. By year 5, one perennial plant often produces more food than an entire row of annuals. And it keeps producing. This is compound interest applied to food. The earlier you plant perennials, the more value they generate over time. If you plant asparagus this spring, you'll be harvesting in 3 years. If you wait 5 years to plant it, you'll be harvesting in 8 years. That's 5 years of missed production. The best time to plant perennials was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. Here's how to start. Pick 1 or 2 perennials that fit your climate and taste preferences. Plant them this spring. Don't expect immediate results. Let them establish. By year 3, you'll have a food source that requires almost no work and produces indefinitely. Then add more perennials each year, and in 5 years, you'll have a perennial food system that feeds you with minimal effort. This ties directly back to the first 4 videos. You stopped buying 17 foods. You stopped buying fertilizer. You stopped buying chicken feed. Now you stop replanting your entire garden every year. Each step reduces recurring costs. Each step builds permanent systems. Perennials are the ultimate example. You invest effort once. The plant pays you back for decades. That's not just efficient, that's freedom. Most people garden like they're renting. Temporary crops, temporary solutions, temporary thinking. Perennials force you to think like an owner. Long-term planning, permanent infrastructure, compounding returns. The next video will show you the minimum garden layout that can feed one person for a year. We'll combine annuals, perennials, and the systems we've built so far. But perennials are the foundation. Because the best food systems are the ones you build once and benefit from forever. Stop replanting every spring. Start planting perennials.